It began with a cube. Howdy! I'm Louie, a professional 2D artist, and this year I'm starting my journey into 3D modeling. Yay! For my first project, I'm making late holiday gifts. My motivation being, you better finish these or else your friends won't get any presents this year. Actually, my motivation truly was to make something cute, unique, and sentimental for my closest friends. We're all frog lovers for life. That sounds so weird. We all love frogs. One of my friends even has her own Pac-Man frog named Mojito. Here's Mojito. When she's out of town, we take turns looking after him and making sure he's living his best damp little frog life. That's when I got the idea to sculpt Mojito. But what's even better than a frog? A succulent! So of course, I decided to make this frog into a pot, because I know my girls love their nature. But I needed something small and low maintenance. We don't need those plants dying on them. With the idea buzzing in my head, I immediately got to sculpting. So of course, I start in Blender. I don't have the shortcut visual activated that most Blender videos have, but this sculpt is a bit of a mess. I'll elaborate a bit more later. So it'll be hard to follow along anyways. Just sit back and enjoy this sped up time lapse of me struggling in Blender. Because speed wasn't my main priority, since my focus was on learning the shortcuts and techniques needed to fill out my silhouette. I mainly followed this video to kind of help with setting up my reference images and blocking out the frog. I was also focusing on kind of understanding the essential modifiers that you would typically use, which seem to be the following. There's the subdivision, there's the mirror, and the boolean modifiers that I've seen being used a lot. Subdivision just kind of adds more planes to the shape, such as making the cube rounder by adding more sides, more planes. The mirror just makes it easier to sculpt a symmetrical object. And the boolean cuts out negative space, at least in the way I used it here. I mainly used it to make sure the pot fit into its hole, like where it's supposed to go in the frog. This last modifier gave me a lot of issues in the past, but I think I finally understand how to use it correctly. I just had to play around with it, and finally I figured out why it wasn't working for me before. First the head, then the body. Continuing with the limbs and the cute little frog butt. I love watching videos of frogs, especially when their cute little butts are on screen. Oh, the cutest butts in all the animal kingdom, I swear. Once I got all the shapes I wanted, I applied my existing modifiers and joined all my shapes together to make it easier to use the sculpting tool. Not gonna lie, I still need to research what all of these even do, but this time I decided I've learned enough for this one project and just experimented with each tool so I can finish quicker. All I wanted to do was blend my creases where parts attached and to add details to the face and eyes. With the frog done, I made the pot that will sit on its back. I used that boolean modifier I told you about and hollowed out the frog's back exactly to fit the pot. At least tried to. The frog and the pot are done. We're done, baby. Woo! Now move on to the next step, the 3D printing. Shit. I'm new to this, right? Like, I've dabbled in 3D printing before because my husband used to experiment with different machines and I would just watch and sometimes help. We'd buy files from like sculptors online, so these models were all set and ready to print, most of the time. You just kind of have to like slice them and, get the supports on there. Typically Basically, usually pretty easy, right? But it's a whole other game when printing as a beginner, making your own models from scratch. There was a lot I had to learn about, like what will print and will not print correctly. With that said, I gotta admit, I had to sculpt this frog not just once or twice, but 3 times. First time I made this little I had a general idea. I didn't draw any references because I was like just going off images of frogs. I just wanted to experiment with the program. You know, make a frog, a pot, no problem, right? Well, not only did I attach the pot to the frog and save locked my file so I couldn't undo, but I also tried to hollow out my frog in Blender. I did it in a really roundabout way because I had remeshed or subdivided or did something too much, and there were way too many vertices and faces to clean up. I missed some, and so when I would put it in the slicing program, it confused the hell out of the program, and the print came out looking like the insides fell out. I spent so much time trying to fix the file, I decided, you know what, I'm just starting over. The second attempt, I sculpted way faster. Good. But I did the complete opposite. I only sculpted using planes, which, according to my research, if you want to make 3D models for animation or games, this is how you do it in order to limit the data size of the model. At least how I understand it. So when I went to print this bitch, this bitch was thin as fuck. The first print couldn't even be pried off the supports. Well, hell, the second test, where I tried to thicken the planes by using a solidify modifier, didn't work either. This cracked print is all I have left of this attempt. My last approach was to fill the inside of the frog with more shapes and join them in Blender, but that made a mess too. So let's start over again. The time lapse you saw at the beginning was the third try. I was way faster at it for sure, and learned a lot from my mistakes. This is when I realized that 3D sculpting is kinda all about experimenting. Each frog I sculpted was done differently each time. There are so many ways to get started. Like, the first step is honestly stepping off the ledge and playing around with the tools. Same with 3D printing. Just like with any printer, there is maintenance involved. Like fishing clumps from the resin vat, leveling the platform, and cleaning the screen. There were failed tests during this version, but it taught me a lot about tending to the machine, and that helped a lot with the final prints. Regardless, I was so ready to be done with this fucking frog. I love you, buddy, but OMG. Quick break so I can introduce today's sponsor. Me! My Ko-Fi shop is currently stocked with stationery such as stickers, washi tape, and notepads. This Undertale enamel pin is a hot item. I also offer commissions, starting at $35 for a black and white bust of your character of choice, or $50 for a black and white full body. Color is extra. My last offer is the full illustration package, which includes 2 characters of your choice, a pet sidekick or familiar, and a full background all in color. This is the best deal for bringing your stories to life, whether it's from a fanfiction, a D&D campaign, or your very own personal stories. Let your imagination run wild and let me bring it to life for you. Thanks! Now back to the video. Now that messing with the machine was over, it was time for the fun part. And by that, I mean getting dressed head to toe in my own hazmat suit to avoid getting resin shavings all over me. After printing, I washed my print in IPA, then in hot water to help with removing the supports. I cure it under UV light, let's say 30 minutes, just to be safe. Then it was sanding time, the reason for my protective layers. I had to sand 4 frogs. Note, the first one I sanded and prepped for paint fell out of my hands. So there was a lot of resin dust, and according to every video I see about 3D printing, you don't want that shit just hanging out on your body or in your lungs. The sanding took a while, but I usually just put something on in the background to help with zoning out and, just getting the task done. Once the frogs and pots were sanded and primed, time for the actual fun part, the paint. Oh, what a joy. I love painting, easily the funnest part of the process. Since the frog design was based off my friend's pet Mojito, I took inspiration in his colors and patterns as well. I ran out of certain paints, so I couldn't match the colors exactly. But meh, I doubt getting the details wrong was a cause for alarm. It's a frog. Who doesn't like frogs any shape, color, size, huh? Which is why I made a color variant. Looking at Pac-Man frogs, I saw they have many colors and patterns, and I especially like the ones with the more reddish tinges. For paint, I used these FW acrylic inks that I've had for forever. They work fantastic, although some colors were a bit more liquidy, watery compared to the rest, causing thinness in some of my mixtures. When applied, I had to monitor that the ink wasn't drooping all over, but the gravity did make some cool effects in certain drips. The ink ranged from opaque to translucent, so experimenting with these effects made for happy accidents. Just putting the finishing touches, UV resin for the eyes to make them shine. Then coating each dried frog with a sealer. I used Mod Podge, both matte and glossy, just to see if there was any real differences in the finishes. I hope that's enough, but literally time will tell. For now, I say they are completely done. Oh my god, they're completely done. They're finally done. They're finally done. Yes. Finally. Final thoughts. How do I feel about the final product? Let me tell you guys. I keep looking at my 3 finished frogs in front of me while I write this script, and I can't help but rock back and forth in giddy excitement. Guys, I made these. From beginning to end, it's mine. From computer screen to in my hands. This feels amazing. I'm glad I didn't give up. Not only do I have some great gifts from my friends, but I made these possible, and that alone is a sweet victory. I put so much love, sweat, and tears into these presents. I learned so much about my Blender workflow, but also learned a lot about the actual production of 3D printing and creating a final piece. From cube to frog! From cube to frog! Cube to frog! Cube to frog! So, where am I now after this experience? How do I feel after all of it? I gotta say, I feel good. I feel very, very good. Thank you for coming along with me on this 3D adventure. I appreciate you sticking around. I'm proud I was able to stick it through to the end and create something wholeheartedly. The roadmap was bumpy at best, with so many frustrating little obstacles halting my progress when I was going full throttle. But reaching the end feels satisfying as fuck. This is good. I'm motivated by this victory. I'm feeling excited for what's next. Excitement makes me anxious though, so I'm hoping to work through these feelings so it doesn't get in my way like it has in the past. I learned that it's normal to feel anxiety. What you do with it is your choice. And I'm choosing to continue down this path of creating unapologetically. If you need permission to get started on your own dream, take this as a sign. Anything is possible. It does not take a lot to start. The tools do not make the artist, so make anything and everything. 'Cause yeah, nothing is original anymore, but there is only one you. Thanks guys. Have a good one. See you next time.